Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be making quick pickles or refrigerator pickles. They take almost no time at all. It doesn't require any canning like water bathing or boiling your jars. It's just a super quick and easy way to pickle things. So you can use your own garden cucumbers and garden dill, or you can buy both of them. I recommend using organic because you are going to be pickling them. You just don't want to have any of the pesticides or any chemicals in your pickles. So to make this recipe, you will need cucumbers, dill, vinegar, salt, and cream of tartar. The tools you'll need to make these pickles is measuring cups, measuring spoons, jars that have been cleaned and sterilized, a pot to boil the brine, and that's it. It's really easy. Okay, so you can make your pickles two different ways. You can cut them into wedges, which is similar to what you see at a deli beside your sandwich. So if you like to have wedges, you just want to make sure that you've cut them to be about equal size so they pickle around the same amount of time. If one's thicker than the other, it'll take longer. Or you can do what I'm going to be working with today, which is slicing them using a mandolin. So I use the thickest option on the mandolin. They get to a pretty good size. I like these because I usually eat my pickles on a sandwich, so why even mess around if I can just stick them right in my sandwich? If you are going to use the mandolin, just make sure that you use the safety gear or a glove that you can use that doesn't get cut, because these things are so sharp and you really don't want to get injured using it. I came outside because it's just such a really nice day out, and so if I can do some of the work outside, I would much rather be out here. So I've picked these cucumbers from my garden. They have these sharp pieces to them. And so the first thing that I'm going to want to do after washing them is I'm going to take something that I can just wipe all of the thorns off. So sometimes I use my cutters and other times I use a knife, just so that way they can be handled easier. This is the end attached to the plant, and this is the flower end. So we're just removing those. Okay, so we're cutting off the two ends. And I have my mandolin set to a 3, so that way I can get a nice thick pickle slice, but you can also wedge them if you don't like the slices. And repeat. And so I have my giant bowl of cucumbers ready to get pickled, so let's get into it. It's very important that you use a sterile jar, so make sure that you run them through the dishwasher on a hot cycle before you pickle, so that way you have clean jars to be using. And don't forget to wash your hands. Step 1 is to add the allspice, whole allspice, to your jars. I like to add about 8 to 10 of them in here. I don't really count, it's just on how you like the flavor. And then you're going to add fresh dill. I cut off the ends that have the roots, but otherwise the whole stalk goes in there. And the next step is to add the cucumbers into the jar. So I like to use the wide mouth jars because your hand can fit in them. And so what you need to do is make sure that you put the cucumbers in as tight as possible. You don't want any air in there because when you add the liquid, it'll make your cucumbers float, and then your cucumbers might not stay under the brine and then they won't pickle properly. So the name of the game is to get as much in here as you possibly can. And you're gonna fill up to the neck, and you're not gonna go any higher than that. Okay, so you can see that it's now been filled. I've jammed it in pretty good here. I could probably get a little bit more in here, but I'm gonna wait and finish the other jars. But I've stopped right at the neckline here because you wanna make sure when you fill up the brine that your cucumbers are fully covered, but there's actually a little bit of space for it as well. So this jar is looking pretty good, and I'm gonna go ahead and start filling up all the rest of my jars until I run out of cucumbers. Okay, so I ran out of cucumbers before I ran out of dill, and I was only able to fill 3 jars, and I really wanted to do 4 jars today. So I filled my 4th jar with zucchini because my zucchini plants are doing their prolific growth right now. So I took a yellow zucchini and did exactly the same thing. I washed it, cut both ends off, and then I used the mandolin. And so you can see I have a little bit of cucumbers here, and then the rest is zucchini It doesn't matter if you mix the two of them together because they're cut to the same size. They'll pickle at the same rate. The only difference between zucchini and the cucumbers is that the zucchini is a little softer and has less of the crunch than you would have with the cucumbers. Okay, so now we're gonna make the brine. So it is 4 cups of filtered water, 1 cup of vinegar, 1/4 cup of coarse salt, and 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. I'm just gonna quickly stir it together and then we're gonna bring it to the stove to boil. So now we're just gonna wait for the water to boil. Okay, so the water is boiled, so we're gonna pour it into the jars. I've put a cloth down so that way if I spill, it doesn't make too big of a mess. And I will spill, that's pretty well a guarantee. Also, don't burn yourself, it's really hot. So I'm going to do all of the jars first and then I'm gonna come back and top it up. It's not quite to the top, but I'm gonna do them all first. Oh, that burns my eyeballs. Hoo-wee! So I'm going to use a clean fork just to help me press everything down to make sure that it's all submerged underwater. Okay, and then you're going to cap them. And the jars are gonna be really hot. They might seal and they might not, so you might hear the sound of it sealing, but it's not a guarantee. And then so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take here and you're just gonna gently tap it on the side of your counter. And what you're doing is you're helping bring the bubbles up to the top of the surface here. Once you're done tapping them, you are going to leave them on the counter until they get to room temperature. And once they reach room temperature, you'll put them in the fridge, wait 6 weeks, and then once 6 weeks is up, you can enjoy them. And so the longer you wait, the more pickled they'll taste. You could technically open them up in 2 weeks from now, but they're not gonna have quite as much of a pickle flavor to them, so I like to wait 6 weeks. A lot of websites will say that quick pickles won't last very long in the fridge, but I have kept mine for up to a year and have had no issues with it. If you open up your jar and it fizzes, do not eat it. I've only had it happen to me one time before. Don't eat it, but otherwise, I hope you enjoy this recipe and thanks so much for watching.